My tenure, my relationship with Rotary goes back to 5 days before I started my job. I received a phone call from Kelly Matthews and Dave Jensen. I think you both know both of those gentlemen. Kelly said, we're meeting with Rotary tomorrow, and they're asking us to move the convention from New Orleans to Salt Lake, and we have a year and a half to do it. And that was 5 days before I started my job. And that's when I met Gene and listened to Gene tell a group of international Rotarians that they should have no worries about having this event in Salt Lake with only a year and a half to do it. And for the first 2 years of my tenure, it was in the industry quite a story that AJ, the meeting planner from Rotary, would tell about how this community in the West pulled off the task of hosting an international Rotarian event within the space of a year and a half. So I admire every one of you and the work that you do on behalf of our community. So I'm going to start from the beginning, back in 1984. No, I'm just kidding. So why do we do what we do? We are a 501c6, so we're a private company structured identical to EDC Utah. We have a contract with Salt Lake County, part of an economic development contract, where we receive a portion of the hotel tax that is collected as a guest checks out of the hotel. It's called the transient room tax. And so we take the money that the visitor pays when he checks out of the hotel, and we use that money to get more visitors to come back to the community. It's kind of an interesting economic life cycle. And you know the best part about the visitor? Anybody have a guess?
They have money.
They go home. They go home. So we don't have to educate them, barely incarcerate them. They put lots of money in our economy. So what that does is it decreases our local tax burden. So that is why an organization like Salt Lake County invests in buildings like the Salt Palace, invests in facilities like the Southtown Exposition Center, and hires organizations like mine to go out and promote this area. So as Mr. Korologos noted, I somewhat feel like I owe you an apology, but it's not very sincere, because the reason you're here is we have 8,000 super nerds in the convention center. This is 8,000 people who deal every day with networks, computer networks, and they call themselves nerds and geeks, and they are from 70 different countries, and they have over this weekend built the world's largest network in our building. I'm sure you've all seen or heard of the network, but this is a network that is literally 100,000 square feet. It is the largest network in existence, and it will be dismantled this next weekend. And they do it as part of their experience in and around the industry of supercomputing. So that's why you're here, because the Marriott's full, and so are about 14 to 15 other hotels, and as in Salt Palace. So again, we're in this business because we have a unique position in the life cycle of our local economy. So it's very different than what EDC Utah does, where they try to bring companies who live here, where we then have to educate those children. And so we fit in with this economic development model that I think is very unique to our portion of what we do, and it's the visitor economy. So a couple things, might know this, but 2015 was a record year. So we have completely recovered from the Great Recession and have set all new benchmarks. So not just hotels, but restaurants and rental cars, all three of the segments that we call tourism revenue, all had record years in 2015. And in all likelihood, all these revenues will surpass 2015 this year. Not by as big of an amount, but we'll have, again, about a 3% increase in overall hotel room revenue from last year. Restaurants still continue to grow in terms of their impact on our economy. And I think it would resonate with all of you. You probably dine out more than you did 10 years ago. So we benefit a lot from the change in lifestyle. And then rental cars. Rental cars are impacted by the visitor economy in a very, very large way. Both the person who comes here, we call him the road warrior. This is the person who was in Los Angeles yesterday selling Motorola radios to the California Department of Transportation. They're now in Salt Lake today selling Motorola radios to the Utah Department of Transportation. And tomorrow they're going to be in Denver talking to Colorado. Those folks use rental cars. Skiers use rental cars. Convention attendees use rental cars. It's also important to note that last year was also the single biggest year the convention center ever had. So nearly 350,000 delegates participated in meetings in the convention center. And that wasn't just because we had more conventions. We did actually have more conventions than we normally have, but every one of our large conventions had record attendance. So we broke records with both outdoor retailer shows. USANA broke records. And I could probably say it's a little bit premature, but we just got the preliminary numbers or the post numbers from doTERRA's annual convention, and they may in fact be our largest convention this year. We have 31,000 attendees at the doTERRA convention. Essential oils. So you're all in the wrong business. But all of our events have had strong attendance. And I think a lot of that is due to the economy. The economy is very strong. Travel is a sort of a canary in the coal mine. We're the first sort of segment to be hit, the last one to come back. But when we come back strong. And so it has been a very good run for us. One of the interesting things Mike and I were talking about before we started today was he asked, so is the record number because you have more hotels? And weirdly enough, no. We don't have a lot more hotels now than we did back in the 2002 Olympic year. There has been a couple of recessions that I'm sure you've all felt since the 2002 Winter Olympic Games. And specifically in Salt Lake City, we have 700 fewer hotel rooms than we had in 2002. We've had hotels that no longer exist, like the Inn at Temple Square. The Holiday Inn on 9th South was converted to long-term housing for low-income families. And the Best Western Plaza Inn took half of its inventory and converted it to female dorm housing for the LDS Business College. So we actually have less inventory in Salt Lake than we did during the Olympics, but the rates are higher and the occupancy is higher. So that's really what has allowed us to kind of surpass that record. So to give you a little bit of a sense of what that is, in 2015, hotel revenue was $465 million, so almost $500 million. When you take restaurant revenue and rental car revenue, again, we call that tourism revenue, was more than $1.4 billion into our economy. So what does that mean? It means travel and tourism, the tourism industry is a big employer in Salt Lake. It's a big employer in the state of Utah. We're the second biggest export in the state of Utah. So travel is an export, right, Lou?
Absolutely.
Travel is an export. And I think it's sometimes hard to recognize on the Wasatch Front just how big travel is. Because so much of the economy that we see, people don't recognize that really as part of the travel economy. But boy, you get down to Springdale, you get into Moab, and you can see just how important the travel and tourism industry is to the entire state, and especially those communities that might not have the diversity or the same style of economy that we have here in Salt Lake. So we spend a lot of our time at Visit Salt Lake working with the Utah Office of Tourism. It is a state agency that has the real responsibility to market and promote the ski industry and the natural parks and natural scenic wonder of our state. We partner with them on most of our international efforts. Salt Lake, as you can imagine, is still home to the state's largest attraction, which is Temple Square. And so if you are a Chinese tourist and you've landed in Las Vegas 21 days ago and gotten on a bus after 3 days in Las Vegas and you've seen Zions and you're just leaving Bryce in the morning at about 8 a.m., you will get to Salt Lake and you will spend an afternoon at Temple Square, maybe a night in the hotel. You'll shop at City Creek and you'll leave the next day for your trip to Yellowstone. Conversely, if you're coming from Minneapolis and you're part of the senior tour on a bus with 45 of your best friends, and you're coming on I-80, guess where you stop? In Salt Lake. We have a very unique position, I think some of you have heard this, called Crossroads of the West, where I-50 and I-80 intersect right here, and so it's a real benefit to our travel and tourism industry, and our economy in general. But it is very unique. If you're coming either way, north, south, or east or west, you're gonna stop in Salt Lake, and you're gonna see Temple Square, and you're gonna spend money on our community. So I always say this, it wouldn't be my job if I didn't mention the two letters OR, outdoor retailer. They have been and remain our single biggest convention client. So those of you that don't know, our relationship began with them in 1994, 96. We just celebrated our big anniversary. So in 1996, it was a small show in Reno, Nevada. It was a group of individuals who used to exhibit alongside the ski industry, now called the snow sports industry because snowboarding has become so big. But it was a show in Las Vegas, and you had organizations like North Face and Arc'teryx and Royal Robin and others that were not necessarily ski industry, but they didn't have a show. So they were part of this ski industry trade show, and they began to feel underappreciated. And so en masse, about 55 exhibitors left the ski show, and join a show in Reno, Nevada, that in our industry we call a hook and bullet show. So this is mainly guide fishing, sort of a really different show than it ended up becoming. And so they joined this show called Outdoor Retailer in Reno, Nevada. After 4 years in Reno, they outgrew Reno. And my predecessor, Rick Davis, I think many of you know and love as much as we do, put together a phenomenal bid and brought that client to Salt Lake. And that was 5,600 attendees and 110,000 square feet of space was their first show. So the last show we just finished was 27,000 attendees with 1.2 million square feet, because we built 3 really big tents that you see in the Block 85. So think about that growth in that industry and how that has defined our community. So what does that mean for us moving forward? We're right now in negotiations with Outdoor Retailer to do some very new and exciting things. They are very, very connected to our community. I get asked all the time, so are they going to leave because of our state's lack of leadership and use of public lands, or because of the fight with the federal government over public lands? And I can tell you no. Clearly, there are members of the community, of the outdoor community, that aren't in love with our land use policy. But they are in love with our city and our state in terms of doing business here. The same reason the companies locate here make this the ideal location for conventions. So they can do this convention, which is a business experience, and they can do it efficiently, effectively, and they do it very well in Salt Lake. So we are right now, I just sent off a draft last night for a new contract with Outdoor Retailer, extending them in our community. And I can tell you from the negotiations, they're very positive. They are not without negotiation, because that's what we do, but they're very positive. And they, I believe, will be even a more strategic part of our community. And I think one that will begin, as they have, to define us sort of as a state. This incredible outdoor recreation that we have access to, but also that we are a really, really good state for business. As my friend Lou knows, one of the best, if not the best, according to Forbes, state for business. And it is not lost on the owners of this trade show that this is a business. The trade show is a business-to-business experience. While it is wonderful to have the mountains so close and to have the snow so good, this is about people doing business. And so I'm very confident that we will continue this relationship with Outdoor Retailer and how it sort of defines who we are, both as a meetings and convention destination, but also as a state. So why are meetings and conventions so important? Now, I'm going to give a disclaimer. I was born and raised in the ski industry. So this slide is not meant to diminish the impact of the ski industry in the state, but I want to kind of share with you the size of the meetings and convention industry in comparison. So the meetings industry is 3 times the size of the ski industry. Let that sink in for a minute. Again, my dad, general manager of a ski resort for 27 years. So I love the ski industry, and it's really provided me enormous opportunities, but the meetings and convention industry is 3 times the size of the ski industry. So I'll break that down for you. In the ski world, you count skier days. That's passes sold, that's not skiers, by the way. So last year, I'm proud of this, I was 55 skier days last year. So I skied 55 times last year. So that's how the ski industry counts success. Now, 50% of all the skiers in the state of Utah are local. So we don't count those in the visitor economy. So even though I skied 55 days, I'm not part of the visitor economy because I live here. So you take 4.2 million skier days, divide it by 50%, you get around 2.1 million skier days. The average skier per the Ski Utah survey over the last 5 years skis 5 days. So you have 420,000 destination skiers in Utah last year. Remember what I opened with? We had 349,212 attendees in just the Salt Palace Convention Center last year. That doesn't count Grand America. That doesn't count Davis Convention Center. That doesn't count Utah Valley Convention Center. That doesn't count the St. George Dixie Center. The meetings industry is enormous, and its impact is enormous in our state. Not just from the dollars that those visitors spend and then go home with, but the impressions that it creates. We often talk in our industry about drivers, why people make a decision to come or go someplace. And I'm sure you can all speak from personal experience. When you're taking a family vacation, it's a very different dynamic than when you're told by your company you're going to go to XYZ destination for a meeting. So when GlaxoSmithKline Pharmaceutical holds a regional meeting in Salt Lake, that employee doesn't say, gosh, well, I don't know, Salt Lake, I can't get a drink, it's kind of boring, there's nothing to do. They don't say that. They say, okay, great, I'll come. I have to go. And then they come here and they find out it is a wonderful place. And then they come back as visitors. We know from 12 years of research with what used to be called the Bureau of Economic Business Research, BEBR as we refer to them, now the Kim Gardner Policy Institute. Did I get that right, Rich? Yeah, Mr. Wood, our patron saint of economic impact. We know from actually 15 years now surveys, Jim Woods and his team come down to the Convention Center 10 times a year and survey groups to find out what they're spending in our local community. We call it a delegate spend. And we know from that 32% of all convention and meetings attendees come back to the state of Utah on vacation and bring with them 2.3 people. So that multiplier is huge. So when they come here for a meeting, they get exposed to our destination, they go back and they talk about how wonderful it is. And they talk about their experience here. And that really helps change the perceptions that we still have in terms of the industry. So, the mega hotel. We prefer to call it a convention center hotel. That phrase comes from a news reporter who coined this, a mega hotel. Again, we don't classify it as a mega hotel. Mega hotels, traditionally in our industry, are over 3,000 rooms. So Las Vegas has a lot of mega hotels. The hotel that we are advocating for is an 850-room hotel that will serve the primary function of allowing us to grow the impact of the convention center. So, why is that important? It's sort of like a church for Easter Sunday, is the best way to describe it. We built it and expanded it for a single client. Back in 2004, we were faced with the prospect of losing the Outdoor Retailer Trade Show because of the size of our convention center. So we went from roughly a 350,000 square foot convention center to a 575,000 square foot convention center. So to give you a little bit of context for that. Our center is virtually the exact same size as the center in Denver, the Colorado Convention Center. It's within 14,000 square feet. There's just 14,000 square feet bigger. Denver is 3.5 times the size of Salt Lake in terms of population, economy, hotel rooms. We have about 18,000 hotel rooms in Salt Lake. Denver has 52,000 hotel rooms. So we have a facility that's much bigger than our market is. So therefore, we sort of compete out of our weight classes. Say. We're competing against cities that are in terms of their population and their economy. Yet we do very well. But this dynamic of having a convention center this size means that we have capacity to grow. Our convention center operates at 54% occupancy. Those of you that have office building background, that's not a really good occupancy rate. It's not for a hotel, it's not just for an office building. We have parts of the convention center that operate nearly 100%. The ballroom, for example, is the largest ballroom in the state, so it has a kind of a built-in audience just because of the size. So it operates about 85% occupancy, but our exhibit space operates about 38 or 40% occupancy. So when an organization like Nu Skin is here with its international meeting and it has 18,000 delegates, it's not even using our entire convention center. Very few of our conventions use the entire convention center because it's just so big. Outdoor Retailer uses all of it plus. So we have the ability to grow the impact of this industry. The single biggest hurdle we have as a destination is our hotel package. If you're a meeting planner and you're bringing 5,000 people to Salt Lake, you're looking and competing against at least 3 or 4 other destinations for that meeting. And so what that meeting planner looks at is all the work they have to do. So if we're competing against Denver and we're bidding on a convention for 5,000 to 7,000 people, we might present a bid that has 21 hotels in it. Of those 21 hotels, 5 or 6 have less than 70 rooms in the block that we're proposing. Denver comes to the table with a bid, remember, same size convention center, they have 9 hotels in the package. So if you're a meeting planner and you're executing a business event, you've got 21 contracts, 21 force majeurs, 21 cancellation policies, 21 things to deal with, or 9. And the hotel industry is like a lot of industries, it has stratification. And so you have hotels that we're using as part of a convention block that really aren't designed for it as a convention hotel. A perfect example is the Hyatt Place in Gateway. great product, setting the world on fire in terms of its brand and how it executes what it does. It's 135 rooms and really geared towards the transient, overnight business attendee, not outdoor retailer contracted 7 years in advance asking for 85% of their inventory. It just doesn't operate that way. So we have this ability to expand the impact of the convention center, add new inventory, and remember, we're 700 fewer than the 2002 Olympics. So we think we have the right time, the right size, and the right need to do this. This is kind of something we talk about a lot in our industry, why people choose a destination. So you can see the top 5 reasons Salt Lake scores so high in 4 of those 5. We are safe, we're affordable, we're accessible, we're clean, ease of transportation. Again, thanks to the Olympic legacy for that. We score so high in those, but we score so low on the most important why people choose to come to the area, and that's the availability of a suitable hotel package. It is so important for people to have access to the right kind of hotel block, both in the planning stage and in the actual experience of being in the city. So that's why we are still hopeful and still pushing towards the direction of this convention center hotel in downtown Salt Lake. And also to give you a little bit of context, Grand America is 750 rooms and the Little America is 900 rooms. So we're not talking about a hotel that's bigger than any hotel we have. But what's unique about this hotel is its location, and it has inventory dedicated to the Salt Palace Convention Center, which makes it a very, very different type of hotel. So one of the things, again, I promise I love this industry. We had a unique opportunity presented to us about 3.5 years ago. We began to do a series of focus groups, asking people what they thought about Salt Lake, what they liked, what they didn't like, and part of this was focused on the meeting clients. And as much as it pains me to say, snow is a 4-letter word in the meetings industry. It is not a driver. People don't like, most people that come to meetings don't like the snow. And they think when we have this 500 inches of annual snowfall, they think that means in Salt Lake. Now, obviously it doesn't. We have the nation's best airport for on-time departures and arrivals. There's all these things that don't make sense, but this perception is we have all this snow. And so what we began to do through our marketing on our main our main efforts was we began to downplay snow, because the non-snow industry is so big when we talk about visitors and the meetings and convention industry. So we sat down with Ben McAdams after he was recently elected, and he said, we've got to solve the problem where our resorts aren't as active and aren't as sort of as important a part of our messaging as we need to. So we had this opportunity to create a new brand for our destination, which doesn't happen a whole lot in this day and age. And again, harkening back to the Olympics, we know, and I think everybody knows, there's some really great ski towns in this world. Park City's one of them. Aspen's one of them. But our dear friend Tom Love challenged us to name another ski city. He said, name another ski city like Salt Lake that has the amenities and the assets that we have that we need to position. So we rebranded Salt Lake as Ski City. We now have a full-blown marketing campaign and a whole product behind it called the Ski City Super Pass, which is really a one-of-a-kind ski pass that the consumer can buy. It's good at any of the 4 resorts, out to Brighton, Snow, Solitude. And the reason that is unique is ownership groups. Vail can offer the Epic Pass because Vail owns all of those resorts. We have 4 distinct different ownership groups who come to the table and promote this product in a very, very aggressive manner. So we can sell a pass to someone who stays at the Marriott downtown, wakes up in the morning and says, I can go to any of these 4 great resorts that I want to go to. It's sold through Expedia, Travelocity, all the online travel agencies, and it's really, really a great product. And we've always sort of believed it, but it wasn't until we made this launch, so we had organizations around the world like the Globe and Mail really coming to the table and saying, you're right, you are the only ski city. You deserve to be called Ski City because you are. There's no other ski town that has the Utah Jazz, the Ballet West, the Utah Symphony and Opera. They just don't have it. They don't have 170 restaurants within a walking distance practically. And so it's been really fun to kind of see this brand now grow. We're in our 3rd year now marketing this, and I hope in the next couple of months, you'll see some really cool stuff at the Salt Lake International Airport around this, because we're getting ready to launch some stuff at the Salt Lake International Airport. So, the name. I always talk about the name. People say, why did you change the name? My mother did not know who I worked for when I said the Bureau. I mean, she thought the FBI, she had no idea what the Bureau was. And the Convention and Visitors Bureau, it sounds sort of, I don't know, it sounds, for most people that aren't in the industry, some nebulous group that does something. And so our website always was visitsaltlake.com. And so we said, why don't we just call ourselves Visit Salt Lake? Because that's what we do. We bring visitors to Salt Lake. We spend about 50% of our resources on the meetings and conventions industry, but we spend the other 50% on general tourism. So when you see all those buses lined up, we talked about coming on I-80 we work diligently with what's called receptive operators to get itineraries planned to include Salt Lake. We work in the ski industry marketing Salt Lake as Ski City. And we also have some other assets in terms of genealogy. As you I can all imagine, we are quite the epicenter for genealogy. And there is a booming travel industry around genealogy.